Welcome back. This is Brunch Education Talk. Today we'll be looking at what has been on the tabloids regarding education. And to discuss this with me in the studio is Dr. Imafidon, an expert on education. Dr. Chris, you're very welcome to our studios today.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to come down.
One of the things that has been very important is what Vince Cable actually said concerning the graduate tax. Now, which is the preferred option, the increased tuition fees or the graduate tax?
Yeah, I would say none of the above, because A, if you increase the tuition fee, you will exclude a substantial percentage of youths going to university. Because the tuition fee is seen as a huge barrier. It's a psychological barrier. If I say you are going to pay for something, you're less likely going to queue up for it. But if you say it's free, everybody queues up for it. So we must make it free at the point of delivery, just like we have with health. Education must be as free as health is. Then when it comes to graduate tax, we already pay graduate tax. I don't really understand that. Anybody that earns a particular amount of money now pays a threshold of tax. If you earn more than that, then you pay a higher rate of tax. Then if you earn the third, there is a higher band that already exists. So targeting specifically people that have a BSc or an MSc or whatever letters they have behind their name, and saying because you have a set of letters behind your name, you now have to pay increased taxation, doesn't make any sense to any country that is interested in development. Because again, you are saying, you're putting another hurdle to say, look, if you come out of university and you're a manager and another person works through the company and becomes a manager, the manager that started through the company and then went through an in-service training and to become a manager will pay less tax than the one that came from the university and had a bachelor's degree in maths or in computer science or in business administration. How do you cope? How do you manage that? That is an added layer of bureaucracy that will in itself cost the country a lot of money.
Looking at these measures that are about to be brought into place, let us compare these with what is happening with our counterparts in the Scandinavian countries. Now, is education in this country still better?
No, it's not comparable. We cannot honestly put them on the same level because there are so many disparities built into it. Our Scandinavian country are quasi-socialist states that believe every single talent in the entire country, regardless of your postcode, regardless of your heritage, regardless of whether you are tall or short, has to have access to full development of their talents. Unlike in our case where we have a traditional class system and we still have relics of the system, residual elements of the system persisting after years of saying we are now equal. We pay lip service to that, but we can see that the type of education that is delivered, the way it's delivered, the how it's delivered varies greatly from one postcode to the other. Until we eliminate that, we cannot even begin to say that anybody that grew up in Norway, for instance, will have the same elements in terms of development as we have here in the UK. We cannot say that. And it's a shame that we're still saying that now, debating that in spite of the fact that we're supposed to be an egalitarian, a purely egalitarian society, where every person matters, where every child is supposed to be the same.
This brings us to what our Prime Minister has said, Prime Minister David Cameron. He says he cannot find any good school amongst the inner city schools in central London. He cannot find any good schools for his children.
Yes.
Now, statistically, is that correct?
That says something about the educational system. We've said it here, we've discussed it here, that there's a particular problem with inner city schools. And a lot of people have written papers on it, a lot of people have debated it. But until you have a son or a daughter going to the school, it doesn't hit home. So it just only hit home for David Cameron because his 6-year-old has had to start school. And he had to reject 15 different schools and eventually settle for a Christian school or a faith-based school in central London for the children to attend. So it really shows that inner city schools do have a problem, do have a deep-seated problem. For him to reject 15 different schools before he was able to arrive at one that he even feels is still he said he's terrified, that's the word he used, he's terrified of the schools that are in central London. Now, if he's terrified, then what option do the other parents have that are sending children to these schools? Doesn't that tell you that the school system has failed and is still failing? Doesn't that tell the Prime Minister? Because he's comparing his educational background with the current standard of schools, and he knows that they failed and they failed very miserably. So it's a failure report for every single school in inner city, because less than 45% of our students still graduate with the 5A to C grades at 16. So our 16-year-olds cannot add, they cannot read, they cannot sum up. So what type of army are we breeding? An army of illiterate? So you have to essentially rely on selective schools and rely on an independent school. And again, he empathizes with parents that are saying they will literally break the bank in order to get their children a decent education, because that's essentially that's the best legacy any child can receive from their parents.
So the parents who have their wards in inner city schools, what should they do?
The survey shows that 1 in 5 parents that have their children in inner city schools send their children for additional support. So you must join a support group. You must look at other parent groups that you can work together and see how can we compensate for these failings in this area. You must say every single school report, you must sit down, look at it and say, what are we going to do to boost the areas that you are not all that sharp in. And then summer schools and holiday schools are the best way for you to catch up with areas that you know they are lacking. So the solution, as far as I'm concerned, is really down to the parents, because the system runs and is irrespective of what the output is. The process has to run. Nobody really cares about the product. So the product is essentially what grade you get. The process is the fact that you have to start school in the morning and go for break in the afternoon, and then in the evening leave for home. So you cannot work with a system that is failing and be relaxed about it. You cannot send your children to school and say, I think they've gone to school. It's the responsibility of the school to be educated. It will turn out at 16 that you've done some serious damage to your son or to your daughter.
Interestingly, what about summer schools? It's now summer. Now, how can parents actually take advantage of the summer schools out there and encourage their wards to attend?
This is the premise. If we go on summer holiday, all of us, by the time we come back, we've forgotten our password because we've not used it every day. If you go on summer holiday, by the time you're back, you have forgotten a lot of the basic principles you've been taught in science and in mathematics. It's even a recognized summer lacuna when it comes to learning. The summer, it fades away. Whatever you've learned, you will definitely forget, because it's like climbing a hill. If you stop, you start sliding down. So every single parent must be serious with the fact that your child must be able to do at least 15 minutes of work, numerical work, because reading still continues. Some people take books in for summer and they read, so the English is still being built. But there is a huge lapse in terms of numeracy every year. This is documented. Studies have been done over and over again, that if you take a holiday from learning about numbers, you'll come back sliding down. If you are even on top of the class, the minimum you can do is to continue at the pace at which you stopped. If you're behind your age-related level,